Welcome to our study on the book of Romans. This is the Sonship Review Part 8, and this is session 57. I should have got a marker out before I got started. Just to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page. Where we left off with last week, I am going to give you a verse. I'm going to put the verse up on the PowerPoint in just a moment. But before we do, let me just talk about what it was we were talking about. We were talking about Israel's blindness. Take a look at this verse, Romans 11:7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So here's my question. Who's the election? The little flock, the believing remnant of Israel. Everybody with me on that? By the way, when you're looking at your notes, we didn't finish last week's notes, so you need to take those up. Did everybody figure that out already? All right. So the notes that we handed out today in the back, they're going to take up right where last week's notes leave off. Does anybody know what page number you're on? I'm sorry? 151 of your notes? Okay. So anyway, the new notes will take up, you'll run for a couple of more pages, and then the new notes will take up. So all of that's there. So here's what you have. Out of all the folks that are in the nation of Israel, only a small remnant of them are believers. The rest of them, are unbelievers. And it says, and the rest were blinded. We've been talking about, why am I coughing now? I haven't coughed all morning. I don't have, but you know what? I do have a water. I do. Thank you. Okay. We'll see how that goes. Okay. The blindness. Let's talk about that for a moment because this is the issue. Try again. If you're blind, what's the problem? You can't see. There's something that Israel couldn't see. We're going to talk about what that is. But is it hot in here to y'all? I'm sorry, I keep interrupting myself, but I'm watching half of everybody fan themselves. I mean, I thought I was coming down with malaria, but I don't know if y'all are comfortable. Are you warm? How many are warm? How many are not? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, if it gets hotter, we'll turn the unit on. How about that? Wow, I feel like I need someone up here with a big fan. Okay. Okay, I digress, so let's get back to this. As we talk about Israel's blindness, that marker's really not very good either. We're talking about something that they don't understand, something that they don't see, mentally, so to speak. And this is because they have rejected a message that's been given to them. Let me tell you how this works. When you get presented with something, it doesn't matter really what it is, but this is really true when it comes to God's message. When someone gets presented with that, you have a response to that one way or the other. You either believe it or you reject it. And if you reject it, what happens is a blindness now begins to take place in a person who rejects the truth. And do you know why that is? I mean, just think with me for a moment. Let's suppose, have you ever talked to anybody about rightly dividing the word and they thought, I don't believe that? If you've ever had that kind of conversation, what do you know has taken place in somebody that hears about right division or hears about sonship or any of those other difficult issues, And when they walk away from that conversation with you and they absolutely don't believe what you've said, what do you know is starting to take place in them? Okay, a hardening, in other words, and how does that take place? What do they start thinking?
They know more.
Okay, maybe they think they know more than you do. What else? What else do they think? I'm just trying to walk you through this process a little bit so you'll, because it's important.
You're crazy.
They do. They think you're crazy.
They think they're right.
They think they think they're right. And because they think they're right, what else now takes place? All of what you said is exactly what I wanted you to say. But now, what else is going to start taking place in them? Pride, okay. Don't they start formulating arguments about why you're wrong and they're right? Doesn't that take place? And then when they talk to other people, they want to convince them that they're right and this thing that they heard is wrong. You know what all of that is doing? All of that is a process that hardens them. Look, we're calling it a blindness here. But it also hardens the heart. In other words, it makes it resistant to the truth in the future. And the more hardened they get, the more resistant to the truth they get. And that is all, and sometimes the Bible calls it this. Remember with Pharaoh? that was the way that's being described. What Paul is doing here is he is going to refer to blindness, but he's not just going to talk about it out of the blue when he says the rest were blinded. He's using terminology that's sitting back in their scriptures that they should already be familiar with. Now, in verses 8 to 10, we get some details about this blindness. So now let's pick it up in verse 8. According as is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day. Sorry, I actually highlighted the wrong part of the verse here. What I meant to highlight was, according as it is written. Spirit of slumber is an important part of that, and we're going to look at it. But if you're saying, according as it is written, then we know what? This is what you're about to read is sitting back in the prophets somewhere. So here's what we're going to find back there. God hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear. And look, all of that is in parenthesis. And then he says, unto this day. There's a reason that is all sitting in parenthesis. I want to talk about that. But here's the thing. There are two, that quote that you see there, according as it is written, comes from two different places. One of those is something that is said by Moses, and it's recorded back in the book of Deuteronomy. The other one is said by Isaiah, and that, of course, is said in Isaiah. So we're going to separate these out and take a look at these two quotes, because this is going to give us the beginning details of the kind of blindness that Israel has. But I have a question for you. If someone has a hardened heart, or if someone is blinded so that they don't understand, I want to just make this point clear because we're going to see the verses that will prove this. This is not because God has just looked down on someone and said, I'm not going to allow you to see. I'm not going to allow you to understand. Most of the commentators really think that's how it works. And for those that do see and those that do understand, then what the commentators say about that is that God gave them this understanding and gave this ability to see. And when you read the scriptures, if you don't understand all that's going on there, you might be tempted to think that's the way it is. I mean, they didn't come to that conclusion. It is wrong, but they didn't come to it for no reason. There were some things that they missed that caused them to see it that way. But the thing I'm saying to you is, God's not doing that at all. He's not looking out and going, you know what, I'm going to allow this and this and this and this person to see and understand, but this and this and this and this person, I'm not going to allow them to see it. They're going to be in darkness. He's not picking and choosing. What is the determining factor on who, well, I have to back up. Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for. And then he says this, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. What is the basis for who got it and who got blinded? What's the basis for that? Yeah, it's their heart. In other words, there's two ways to respond. That's what I said a while ago. Two ways to respond to truth. You either believe that truth or you reject that truth. If you believe, you see it. If you reject it, it results in blindness. Everybody see what's going on, Linda?
You have to believe once you believe, you become part of the election. It's not that you're part of the election and then.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Cart before the horse type thing. Okay. Oh, someone's going to say, what did she say? They always do this. Somebody said something. Clifford is looking at you like you just accidentally stumbled on that. Yeah, okay.
She knows everything.
Okay.
She always gets.
So I have to, she always says stuff, right? I need to say it back because the folks on the video won't have heard that. You're saying the fact is that they believed and then they were elected, not they were elected and then they believed. That's exactly right. Okay. Two issues here. So the issue that is recorded by Moses over in the book of Deuteronomy is this part right here. Let me get back to the verse. According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber. That's the part that's quoted by Moses in Deuteronomy. But when he gets to the rest of the verse, eyes that should not see and ears that they should not hear. So let's just do it this way. Eyes. Why am I having trouble today?
The Lord had poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep.
Yes.
That's Isaiah. And then Moses in Deuteronomy, yet the Lord hath not given you.
I'm sorry. You're right. When you were saying it, you're right. Did everybody understand what was going on there? I agree with you, Clifford. Okay. Wait, no. No. Deuteronomy 29, they're both 29. That's one reason they're confused. Deuteronomy 29, Isaiah 29. Deuteronomy 29, we're going to read it, aren't we? Eventually?
It has it in here, but.
Yeah, okay. So this is the eyes and ears. And this is the slumber issue. Okay, now we're right, aren't we? Okay. All right. So now let's start reading these so that you can actually see them. Should have read them first. That way I could have got them right when I put them on the board first time. Here we go. Romans 11:8. Well, there it is, according as it is written. I'm sorry. All right, so here we are. Isaiah 29:10. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep. What is the difference between what is written in Isaiah and what Paul wrote over in Romans 11? This is just they used a different terminology. Yeah, sleep and slumber. So when he quotes them, Isaiah called it a deep sleep. What does that imply to you? If someone's in a deep sleep. Clifford says a coma. There are those folks that when they go to sleep, have you ever noticed? You're not getting them up. I used to jokingly say, you could just run the Kentucky Derby right through their bedroom. They wouldn't have any idea anything ever happened. So if you're in a deep sleep, what does that imply now? Because Paul's making a point here. The Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep in Isaiah. In Romans 11, the spirit of slumber. So what is that implying?
But you're not going to know at all what's going on.
You don't have any perception at all, right, of what's happening?
And you really don't care either.
Right, just don't wake me up, right. Okay. That is the attitude. I don't want to know what's going on. Okay, so Deuteronomy 29. Yet the Lord hath not given you an heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear, unto this day. Do you see that unto this day there in Deuteronomy? Do you recall what we just looked at a moment ago? I might as well just deal with this here and now. Look at this. According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear. And then that closed parenthesis stops the quote. Because at the end of that quote, it does say, can I go back over? Eyes to see and ears to hear unto this day. Do you see that? But when you get over here in Romans 11, Paul cuts off the quote, but he still adds unto, sorry, he adds unto this day. Does anybody know what's going on there? What's going on with that?
Never-ending story.
Oh, you know what? It is never ending. In other words, Moses said, this is going on with you, and it's still happening today. And when Paul quotes it, he doesn't want to leave it as though unto this day is restricted back to Moses' day, because he put unto this day outside the parenthesis. You know what he's saying? That's still happening now in this dispensation of Gentile grace. That same thing that has been plaguing. Everybody see that? So when you read that little parenthesis there, that's a stroke of genius. Because now it allows Paul to carry that thing further forward into his day as well. So what Paul is saying here is, when he says, according as is written, Moses said something to you guys, Isaiah said something to you guys, and what they said to you, that same issue is still happening today in the dispensation of grace. Now, let's put those two verses together. Romans, well, what did I do? Did I have you go all the way back? Have we read this yet? 29:10, did we read that? We did, didn't we?
Yes.
Oh, I backed up. That's what it was. So now let's put the two together. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for. What was Israel seeking for? They were zealous of it. They were trying to get it by the law. Righteousness. They were trying to get righteousness. Israel hath not obtained the righteousness that he was seeking for, but the election obtained it. The election is? Little flock. Did the little flock get righteousness? They sure did. And the rest were blinded. That means everybody that didn't get that righteousness, now they're blinded. And what are they blinded to? Well, in the very context of this, aren't they blinded to how a person becomes righteous? How did they think they were going to be righteous? By the works of the law. That wasn't going to work, but they weren't going to see that. And so that little exercise we did a while ago, can you imagine someone hearing Paul talk about the righteousness which is of faith, and they're thinking, I don't know how Paul thinks that's going to happen. I've got the law. Can you hear them talking to their friends about it and defending their position? Moses gave us the law. How dare Paul talk against Moses? I can hear all that going on. So, let's see where we are here. Now, here's the other thing I want to talk about in this blindness, because look in verse 8. According as written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, and eyes that don't see and ears that don't hear. So if you just read that verse alone, what idea do you get? It looks like God put it on them so that they went to sleep and they couldn't see and they couldn't hear. But that's not the whole story, and that's the thing that's important to understand here. So, look what Isaiah said. Let's go back to Isaiah. I'm sorry, I'm going to quote this out of Acts first. I'm sorry, because he's going to quote that. Acts 28:23. And when they had appointed him a day, there came many to him in his lodging, to whom he expounded and testified the kingdom of God, persuading them concerning Jesus, both out of the law of Moses and out of the prophets from morning till evening. And so, this is Paul preaching, by the way. I mean, I thought, I just kind of took that for granted. You knew that. And it says, verse 24, and some believed the things which were spoken, and some believed not. Does that surprise you? Because what? There's always two responses to the message, right? Some believe and some reject. Verse 25. And when they agreed not among themselves, they departed, after that Paul had spoken one word. It doesn't mean one single word, it means one message, yes, so to speak. So, here it is. Well spake the Holy Ghost by Isaiah the prophet unto our fathers, saying, Go unto this people and say, this is what God said to Isaiah, hearing, ye shall hear and not understand, and seeing, ye shall see and not perceive. And here's what that's saying. When he says hearing and seeing, he's saying, you got the message. You did hear it, but look what he says, hearing, ye shall hear, you hear it. He says, but you don't understand it. And does anybody know why they don't understand it? Because they didn't believe it. They didn't believe it. Does that make the message less true? No. Same thing with the seeing. And seeing, ye shall see and not perceive. Hey, you got the message, but you rejected it. And so, as a result, you didn't get it. Now, let's go take this to Isaiah. For the heart of this people is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes, who closed? They have closed. See, he's talking about their response to this message. And look at, this is important right here. Why in the world did they shut their ears and close their eyes? Why did they do that? He tells you right after the semicolon, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their heart and be converted, and I should heal them. Do you know why they did that? You know why they shut their ears and closed their eyes? Because they didn't want what was being told to them. They didn't want to be converted. They didn't want to hear that message. They didn't like that message. So who is ultimately responsible? They are. So look, if you tell someone the truth and they reject it and they harden themselves against it, ultimately they did it, right? And if you come back and give them the truth again and they further harden their heart and become more blind, ultimately they did it. But they did it in response to you. So you know what you could say? When someone is hardened like that, and someone says, how did they get that way? You could say, I did that to them. Do you see what I'm talking about? And someone says, well, how did you do that? Well, I told them the truth. And their response dictated what happened. So when God says, I hardened them. I blinded them. He's not saying, I just waved my hand and suddenly they were blinded. He's saying, I gave them the truth. So indirectly, God did it. Directly, they did it. Okay, any question about that? I just want to make sure we got that down. Okay. Are you saying there's no question? Now I'm questioning the fact that you have no questions. Okay. All right. So, all right, let's move back to, I guess I missed that. Acts 13? No. I'm sorry. Where am I here? That one's next? Is it? Okay. Is it? Okay, I guess it is. Wait, I know why. I wanted to talk to you about this. When Isaiah says, the heart of this people is waxed gross, their ears are dull of hearing, their eyes have they closed, there's a message they're not believing, right? Now, this is going to be a little bit unfair, but I'm going to ask you and see if anybody knows. What was the message they rejected? Now, you could think of a bunch of messages that Israel rejected. But you're in Acts 28, but where's he quoting from? We already know. Isaiah 29, right? We already read that in Isaiah 29. Look, let me see. Let me back this up. Well spake the Holy Ghost by Isaiah the prophet. We already read it in Isaiah. Where was that? Let me back up again. Isaiah 29. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep. What was the message that they went to sleep under? Isaiah 29. What do you know about the prophets? This gives you a clue. What do you know about all of the prophets? When they began their book, here's Isaiah. And when he starts out the book of his prophecy, he is talking about the things in his present day, right? As the book moves on, it's going to wind up talking about things in the kingdom. So you know as you move through the book, what are you talking about? Well, Isaiah begins warning them, first of all, about what? What is he warning them about? Something is about to come upon them unless they repent and turn around. What's about to come upon them? The fifth course of punishment where they're carried away captive is about to come upon them. And he's talking to them back then. Let me ask you a question. Did they believe the message? No, they didn't want to believe that. So you know what they got prophets to go around saying, not only is Babylon not going to come, or Assyria, for the northern kingdom, Babylon for the southern kingdom, not only they're not going to come and take us away, but the stuff that they've gotten so far, we're going to get that back. And they did not want to hear it. All right, that was the buzzer, so Anna, cut me